Hello class, welcome back to StudyWeb Academy, where education is without limits. Welcome back to our English class, and let's continue exploring parts of speech. So we were looking at, we've looked at the different types. We've looked at the nouns, okay? We've talked about the nouns and the types of nouns. We've talked about nouns in general. Then we went to pronouns, and we were discussing the types of pronouns, okay? So I talked about very many types. I started with the personal pronouns, looked at the possessive pronouns. I also looked at the demonstrative pronouns, relative pronouns, okay? And that is what I'm discussing now, the relative pronouns. And then indefinite pronouns, we had the reciprocal pronouns, we had the intensive pronouns, the relative clauses, and I was just explaining more these relative clauses. So just like the relative pronouns, they're used to just provide more information about a noun in a sentence. So I gave you an example, this is the girl who helped me yesterday. So you notice that there are two parts in this sentence. There's a girl here, and what about the girl? She helped you yesterday. So that is the additional information. So we use the relative clauses, the relative pronouns, who, or the relative pronoun who, to just add more information about the girl here, okay? So we say, this is the girl who helped me yesterday. So don't forget about that. Now let's move and look at the pronoun antecedent agreement. Pronoun antecedent agreement, pronoun antecedent agreement. Now here students learn the importance of pronoun antecedent agreement, ensuring that pronouns match the nouns to which they refer in terms of number, that is singular or plural, and gender. So when you talk about pronoun antecedent agreement, what do I mean? Anytime you use a pronoun, we must make sure it is the right pronoun and it's fit for that sentence. So for example, John went to class very early. John went to class very early. He then started revising for his exam. He went to, after the revision, he decided to go play with his friends. They all played and they found themselves tired at the end of the day. So you notice that I've used John here, and this is a male figure, or a male, the male figure, right? So here we will consider the gender, okay? So we'll use pronouns like he, him, his. When I said he went to play with his friends, you notice that I'm using this gender here. So again, we pay attention to if it's in singular or plural, and we notice that John is a singular, so we use pronouns like he. And when I'm talking about maybe the boys, I will use themselves or such pronouns, okay? So notice I am putting my sentence in such a way that there's a pronoun antecedent agreement. And if I was talking about the feminine side, or the feminine figure, for example, the girl, maybe Mary woke up very early, then decided to go study for her exam in class. She studied for long hours, or when you listen to me talk, you notice that Mary here is a feminine figure, or a lady, okay? So this gender, it's the female. So I will use the pronouns that refer to females, like her, she, okay, and maybe herself, such pronouns. So don't forget about that. So pronoun antecedent agreement is just matching pronouns to the nouns in which they refer to in terms of the number. When it's plural, we can say like the boys, and then we use a singular pronoun there, okay? We must use pronouns like they, okay? The boys played football. We can't use like he played football. We'll say they played football to show the plural, okay? So don't forget about that. So that is all about the pronoun antecedent agreement, just making sure we are using pronoun, or we match pronouns to the nouns they refer to in terms of their singularity, or whether they're in plural form, and also in terms of the gender, okay? So that is something important to look at. And then we have something known as case of pronouns. Now here we explore the concept of pronoun case, we including the nominative case, e.g. he, she, the objective case, and that is the him, her, and the possessive case, his, hers. So we've talked about this, and I know we know this. When you talked about the subject of the sentence, we use pronouns like he and she. So he is tall or she is dark. So such are subjective pronouns, okay? Or nominative pronouns or nominative case, okay? But when you talk about subjective case, these are pronouns that like he and her. For example, she talked to him yesterday. Mary wanted to call her mother yesterday. You should notice that these are objective clauses or objective cases, okay? So where they appear after the nominative cases, okay? Then we have the possessive cases here, like this is his pen, or this is hers, okay? This is his. These are example of possessive pronouns. Don't forget about that. So generally, all we need to know is that using pronouns correctly is very, very important for clear and effective communication. Whether you're writing, whether you're speaking, anything that you do in English, it's very important for you to understand and use these pronouns correctly. So as a student in 9th grade, okay, we have to refine our skills in using pronouns in various sentences structure and context. And also we have to, at this stage, we have to be able to identify pronouns very, very easily. So that's something that it's a skill we learn as we continue exploring parts of speech. So after the pronoun, I will move to the next part of speech, and that is something very, very nice we call as the verbs. Now, like I said, a verb is a doing word, and I want to leave it at that. A verb is a doing word, just that. So it's an action verb or an occurrence or a state of being, okay? So a verb is a doing word or an action word, okay? So that is all about verbs. Now we have something we call verb basics, okay? So we're going to be looking at this verb basics, where we will continue to learn that verbs are words that express actions, events, or a state of being. So we should understand these roles of verbs in sentences, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. Now, we have something we call action verb. Now, what is an action verb? Even just from the word action verb, these are just verbs that describe physical or mental actions. So these verbs explore the physical aspect or the mental aspect. For example, I am thinking about tomorrow's exam, or she is running, she is writing. So these are actions that someone is doing. When you're thinking, you're doing a mental action of thinking, okay? When you're running, you're doing a physical action of running. When you're writing, you're doing a physical action of writing. So you notice that we have action verbs here, okay? And I've given you examples: they run, think, write. So that is one category of verbs. Now let's look at the next category under verbs, and that is the linking verbs. Even from just the word linking, this is verbs that connect subject of the sentence to a subject complement, okay? So it can typically an adjective or a noun which describes or renames the subject. So we have linking verbs here. And just to mention, who knows the other name of linking verbs? Oh, the other name of what we call linking verbs, what are they? So linking verbs are also called helping verbs. So linking verbs are also called helping verbs. So we have is, we have am, we have are, we have was, we have were. So these are linking verbs. They just connect sentences. So for example, she is running, or I am cooking, they are singing, she was dancing, they were eating. So these are linking verbs that links the subject to the subject complement. So for example, the subject here is she. So what will link she to the action, okay? Or what will link she to the other part of the sentence? She is cooking. So you find that the linking verbs here or the action verbs here just connect our subject of the sentence to a subject complement. So those are the examples. So we have is, were, have, has, did, do, does, being, okay? So these are all the types of the common linking verbs that we know, but here I've just given the common list that we use most of the time. We have is, are, was, and were. But we have others like being, be, been, have, has, did, do, does, okay, may, might, could. All these are linking verbs. Don't forget about that. Then the next, we have the transitive and the intransitive verbs. We have the transitive and the intransitive verbs. So here we explore the difference between transitive verbs. These are verbs that take a direct object, and intransitive verbs, they are verbs that do not require an object. Okay, so we have the transitive verbs and the intransitive verbs. So with the transitive verbs, I've said they are verbs that take a direct object. Okay, she is cooking. Look at that. That is very, very direct. Okay, she is cooking. It takes a direct object. Okay, so for example, I'll give an example here. Mary is taller than her mother. So you notice that is and the other part of the sentence is being compared directly. So even you can find more insight on what transitive and intransitive verbs are. So transitive verbs, they are verbs that take direct objects, okay? While intransitive verbs, they are verbs that do not require direct object, okay? Then the next category we have regular and irregular verbs. Regular and irregular verbs. So here we have to learn about the regular verbs, which form the past tense by adding ed. So regular verbs are just verbs that when you want to talk about them in the past tense, you just add ed to it. Walk, walked, cook, cooked, okay? Wash, washed, watch, watched. Okay, so these are just regular verbs. Dance, danced. Point, pointed. Shift, shifted. So these are just verbs that you add ed to show past tense. But irregular verbs, these are verbs that have a unique past tense. For example, go becomes went. So go is in the present tense, went is in the past tense. So these are the irregular verbs. They just have some unique past tense, okay? So those are the irregular verbs, the irregular verbs that we talk about, okay? Now, we have another example or something we call the verb tenses. So like I said, this lesson is basically important for juggling our memory, just to remind us what we've done in our past classes. And right now we're talking about the verb tenses. So here students delve into various tenses. We have the simple present, we have the simple past, we have the simple future, we have the present continuous, and we have the past continuous, we have the future continuous, and we have the present perfect, and the past perfect, and future perfect tense. Now this is a lot of examples I've given here, but all these are examples of tenses. So you find that someone must speak, when you're talking about a memory, you notice that all the tenses will be in past tense. Or when you're talking about a current situation, all your sentences will be in present tense. Or when you're talking about your dreams or something you aspire to do or be, you'll talk in terms of your future continuous tense, okay, or future tense. So notice that too, don't forget. So those are the examples of the verb tenses we have. So we have to learn when and how to use these tenses and indicate when an action took place or it's ongoing. Okay, so these are the tenses that we know. Okay, the other part we look at is mood and voice. Here we may explore the concept of mood, or that is indicative, imperative, subjunctive, and voice, which is active or passive voice, and how effective the meaning and structure of the sentences are. So, for example, when we talk about an active voice, this is the speaker, the person who is talking, but the passive voice is reported voice. So maybe when I say Mary said that, so I'm reporting Mary's word. Those are not my words. So that is the passive voice. But with the active voice, it's me who is talking. I demand for this, or I want this. So that is the active voice, okay? So now we have mood. Mood, it can be indicative, impressive, or subjunctive move. Okay,